Rev up your engines!
Well, here's some news for you Back to the Future fans. It turns out that DeLorean DMC-12 cars are going to be made again. They assume that it's going to be around 2021 that they're actually going to be out for sale. Those classic DeLoreans that you see in Back to the Future realized that DeLorean himself, he named the cars after himself, only made like 9,000 of these things. And of these 9,000, 6,500 still exist today. There is an obscure law in the United States. It's called the Low Volume Motor Vehicle Manufacturing Act of 2015. It allows a certain amount of cars to be built that don't have to meet all the federal regulations. They can build up to 325 cars per year, and they don't have to meet certain regulations. But there was a technicality with that law. Their suits have been going on, and now it looks like they've cleared the suit, so they'll be able to build 325 or less. There's all kinds of paperwork and stuff that they got to fill out. It'll probably be 2021 that they'll be able to sell these things. What they're basically doing is they're remanufacturing old DeLoreans, or there's a lot of parts stores around. They say it's going to have a new engine and modern amenities in it, which to me makes total sense because those things were underpowered. They were relatively heavy vehicles, and they had this V6 engine that wasn't the most powerful engine on Earth. They were extremely underpowered, so it would make sense that they would put a bigger engine in the thing. Now they're floating a price of around $100,000. So they're not going to be giving these things away, and they're actually not brand new cars. They're kind of like refurbished, and they put new engines in. They'll be redesigned to some extent, but they're still going to look, the body and everything's going to look the same, so it's got that classic Back to the Future look. And hey, if they're only going to make 325 or less per year, they're probably easy to be able to sell them because there's enough people on the planet that want to buy oddball stuff. Through the course of my lifetime, I've seen people sell small volumes of bizarre type cars, and especially in the last decade or so, they seem to be more popular with people, oddball stuff. So if you're only going to make that many a year, it's a big planet with billions of people. I don't think it'd be that hard to sell 300 of them a year. Watch out in 2021 that you can actually buy yourself if you've got $100,000 lying around. Now everybody knows that SUVs are extremely popular in the United States these days. You might be surprised to learn that the popularity of older ones is starting to go on the upswing. Older SUVs and also older pickup trucks are increasing in value at these car auctions. 77% of these vehicles at auctions sold at or above the asking price. Normally, of course, especially when things are kind of juxtaposed economically, auction cars go for less than what they're asking, or they don't even sell them at all because nobody wants to bid. But it seems that even the older SUVs are going up in value. As an example, a 1989 Jeep Grand Wagoneer sold for $110,000, which is 200% more than what they had valued it at in the first place. I mean, I think somebody's insane to pay that kind of money for an 89 Jeep Grand Wagoneer. I mean, and as another example, the 1954 Dodge Power Wagon went for $110,000, which was 80% more than the thing was valued at. People are getting into the old ones now. I mean, if you think about it, it only kind of makes sense because that's rarefied air, the classic ones that go for a bunch of money. People are always looking for something different. It reminds me of a friend of mine ages ago who did work at golf carts, fixed golf carts at this fancy country club on the East Coast. He also did cars and trucks. Well, one of the millionaires in this fancy golf club liked his old truck, and he said, "Hey, can you get me an old truck and fix it up? I want something different. I don't want to be here with a brand new one. I want an old one that looks like it's new." So he found an old 50s truck and he fixed it all up for the guy, and it looked like brand new. He showed me the pictures of the thing. Even back then, this was 20-something years ago, guy had over $100,000 into this old truck, but it was a unique truck. And all the other millionaires, they started to think the same thing, and then they were paying guys to fix up really old trucks for them to drive. You know, it was kind of a competition of reverse snobbery, old trucks, but they're all fixed up and look fantastic. So when you get into this rarefied air, people paying that kind of money for old old SUVs. It doesn't actually surprise me that people are going to pay that kind of money for it, because it's kind of like, you might have the brand new SUV, but look what I got, you know? I got a 30, 40-year-old one. I got more class than you. I could see that happening. Toyota FJ40 Land Cruiser. It went for $61,000, which was over 50% more than they even thought the thing was worth. This whole thing does show that even that's starting to slant towards SUVs, because the cars, they were only 58% of selling at what they were valued or above, where 78% SUVs that were going for the same price are higher. So it shows that even the old ones are becoming more popular. SUVs taking over the world, I guess, here in the United States. Steuben 1023 says, Scotty, hope all's well. My uncle's friend just bought himself a used 2018 Lamborghini Urus with 12,000 miles. Are they better made than the supercars, or are they even bigger money pits than the Land Rovers? Well, I guarantee you that they're even bigger money pits than the Land Rovers. The Urus is the Lamborghini SUV. You know what I mean? Somebody would have told me years ago Lamborghini's going to make SUVs. I'm like, wow, the world's turned upside down on its head. But there's always a certain amount of people that are going to buy anything that's got a name when it comes to extremely rich people and snazzy vehicles. From what I've read, that's their big seller now. Their Urus, their SUV, outsells their fancy sports cars, right? So, I mean, that's the world these days, right? Well, your uncle's friend has more money and he knows what to do with, so it's his money. He wants to waste it on that thing. I mean, let's take it. It's only, you know, a year and a half old vehicle, and he bought it used. Why did the original guy get rid of it? You know, it kind of makes you wonder. I had a customer buy a used Mazda from the Mazda dealer, and it only had 1,500 miles on it. He brought it in, I put on my big scan tool, and I'm like, something's fishy. And I'm watching the MAF sensor data from how much air goes in the engine, and the car was idling fine. Tachometer was just sitting there. But the data was showing 1.4 grams per second, 1.2 grams per second, 0.98 grams per second, all while the engine was idling at the same speed. It's impossible for the air to be changing that much. Then I looked at the misfire data, and it showed that there were various misfires on cylinders. And then when I revved it up and went down, it showed there were more misfires. The car wasn't running right. It hit 1,800 miles. Why don't you look up some data on it? So he paid for the Carfax, which isn't always exact, but at least it gives you bad information, you know that's bad. So he finds out that this car was sold at auction, and the dealer bought it at auction with, like, you know, 1,800 miles on it, whatever it had. Why was this car sold at auction? And he has a problem. And the guy took it back to the dealer and said, even they tried to pull a fast one on it. They obviously didn't know. They bought it from an auction. Why would anybody sell a car that's got 1,800 miles on an auction? Auction cars go for less money. So obviously there's a problem with the car. And with that, why would anybody get rid of a thing that's a year and a half old and lose a fortune? You sell it when it's a year and a half old, you're probably going to lose half to 3/4 of what you paid for it. So obviously it's a problem already. Your uncle's friend is insane. Well, at least it wasn't your uncle or yourself. Unless you're making a story up, and it is you, and you don't want to admit that you made a mistake. Cheyenne 25711 says, I got an 09 Toyota Matrix, brake lights, but no tail lights. Recently replaced the alternator, and the headlights are on. The car will die. The battery is quickly drained with the lights on. Please help. You have what's called live short. Those are the worst electrical problems to try to figure out, because it happens while the car is running. Now, if you got a dead short, you let your car park, and the next day it doesn't start, they're usually relatively easy to find, because there's a drain on the battery. You put a test on it, and you see it's got maybe, 1 amp drain, and then you start pulling the fuses out and pulling wiring off until the drain goes down, and that's the system that's the problem. When they're running, you can't test them that way. They're much harder to test. But you have some type of electrical problem. You said you replaced the alternator recently, and if you put the headlights on, the car dies. Just have the alternator and the battery load tested right now. Could have been you got a bad alternator. Most alternators you buy aren't brand new. They're remanufactured. Hey, remanufactured things, a lot of times they aren't remanufactured right, and they don't work right. So that's where I would start. If you haven't been wrecked and flooded or anything like that on that vehicle, odds are it's just a bad alternator. I've had it happen to me. I'll buy one someplace, and then a short period of time later, it doesn't work anymore because they didn't rebuild it correctly. SDWR says, Scotty, I'm thinking about trading my 2012 Dodge Avenger, 74,000 miles. I had to replace the heater cord. It's a small dent. My sister driving, the windshield's cracked, and it's leaking a little coolant. I'm going to trade it for '07 Honda Civic EX with 119,000 miles. Dealer says he can give me $2,500 for my car, and the Honda Civic is $29,000. Okay, so it's going to cost you $400 to trade. Do it now, as fast as you can, before he changes his mind. The Dodges are endless money pits. You've already seen you had to change the heater core in the thing, and there's a lot more things that are going to go wrong down the line. That would be a very smart move. Those Hondas can last for a really, really long time, but pay a mechanic to check it out. You got no idea what has happened to that Civic. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.